Okay, people. So it's June 17th, 2018 at about 8 o'clock in the morning. And my day is just beginning. So, what I want to talk about here is, what if this would have happened to Shimei? I'm sorry, to Ciera. Shimei's right here. Right? This is the reality of what I'm talking about, people. Okay, now just imagine if Ciera was in there, her body, her ashes, versus Shimei's. Okay, because it can happen to Ciera at any time. It's already happened to Ciera 100 times in terms of ODing. And then having to be Narcaned. Whereas Shimei was hot capped and left to die. Okay, there's a big difference. And that's the point of this video. What if this would have happened to Ciera? What would have been the reactions, okay? But before we can get into those reactions, we have to kind of like backtrack and just touch base on the things that Ciera has put this family through because of her drug addiction. Right? Which, to currently, I am asking for her old room back, for her to go back into that house that initially started because of her. Right? They can't accuse her of being a thief if they're going to steal the house from her. Right? It's not long-term. It never was long-term. And she has a right to be there to the bitter end, just like everybody else that first moved into that house. I have not kicked out anybody. I've made threats to kick out people, but I haven't kicked out anybody yet. And therefore, they don't have the right to kick out people themselves. But for some reason, they think they have a democracy in there. And they make the rules, and they voted me out, and it turned into this huge mutiny. All right, but anyway, besides that point, in 2015, in the wintertime is the hardest on the family. I'm pointing this out because I want people to understand what Shimei went through because of her sister, right? And really, the catalyst began in December of 2012. Out the door she went, and then it just exploded from there, right? So winters are a very difficult time for Ciera's family because Ciera has nowhere to go. So she comes to the yard, right? And in 2015, she was in the living room, had her own space, was curtained off in the winter, throughout the winter, because my kids they were tolerating her. They were putting up with her, right? They didn't want her outside freezing, people. Oh, my lordy. Hold on. So, and of course, Ciera is only making half attempts to get better, right? In terms of getting on a methadone program or something like that. So when the weather warms up, what I've noticed is, get out. 2016, winter, again, we gave her another chance. Well, the kids did. It wasn't me. She was downstairs, right? They gave her another chance. Certain just basic rules. My son said, don't touch my food, don't eat my food. And Ciera would touch his food and eat his food. But there were also times when she was, you'd walk in and you didn't know if she was going to be laying dead in the kitchen or laying dead in the living room or being, sitting up against the bathroom cupboard, dead, because she was using in those days, right? And it just, throughout my videos, I made mention of it from, maybe not to the extreme, because at that time we were like in the middle of it, having to cope with it by ourselves as a family. Because anytime she went into the hospital for any reason, whatever it was, because there was times she needed blood transfusions, right? Because she was bleeding out. Which that still has not been corrected. The hospital would just release her. And she'd come back here. right? So we did the best we could. And then by spring, or, spring, the later part of spring, that's when the kids said, that's it, we're done. Just get out of here. Right? So I try and help her find a place, but none of it panned out. And so we just did the best that we could, right? In terms of giving her clothes, giving her food, giving her money, right? And then the winter of 2017 came along, and nobody wanted her in the living room anymore. Nobody could trust her anymore not to be doing drugs by herself so that she would OD at any location in the basement, right? Basically. Nobody wanted to walk in and find Ciera dead, okay? Or come out of your bedroom and find her sitting, laying up by the stove dead, right? So, come spring, just out the door. And then, again, family did what we could, right? Gave her clothes, gave her food, gave her money, and that's when I started looking for, hold on a minute. No, I'm ahead. This is in 2016. Because in 2017, we got the house. Hold on. We got the house in 2017. Winter. Right? Right? 2016, she got to use the laundry room because the kids were afraid to have her in the living room, because we tried it for 2 years. We tried 2014, 15, and then by 2016, that's it. They said no more, right? But because it was so cold outside, she ended up kind of moving into the laundry room. Because if we didn't let her go into the laundry room, we were afraid we'd find her dead in a carport. Right? And this is what she may have to put up with. Right? And my son. And Tisha. Right? And then 2017 in January, so December, January, right? That's when I got the house, because I couldn't have her coming here. They didn't even want her in the laundry room. Right? And I don't blame them. Who wants to have somebody that's mentally ill and physically ill living in their laundry room? Nobody. But this is what this province has come down to, people, because there are no resources for people like my daughter. And this is why I'm asking these people at this house to take her back, right? Because I asked them, I said, what you fighting for? You're only here for another 3-4 months. Why are you fighting so hard? And so anyway, the person that moved in that kind of got my daughter kicked out, and then now the room is empty, so I'm looking at the room and I'm like, okay, well, she needs her room back, because 2-3 days ago, she was out in my yard, right? We gave her some food, we gave her some money, we gave her some clothes, right? And then an hour and a half later, or whatever it was, she was in the back alley, because she can't come in, people, right? What do you call it? There were the cops out there, right? Dealing with her in the middle of the alley, because somebody's calling, right? And with blood on her. Well, I don't know how that happened. She just got new clothes on, right? Like within an hour ago. And one of them is kind of manhandling her, reaching like this. But my daughter can get abrasive, right? The more she gets overstimulated, the more abrasive she gets. So I'm not mad at the cop, right, per se, but I can only imagine what it would be like for Ciera to come across individuals who aren't so disciplined, right? These cops are disciplined. Well, that's why they're cops, because they're disciplined, right? They're where they're supposed to be disciplined. Had a conversation with the cops, showed them the paperwork that I have, told them what I'm going to be doing in terms of, I've already warned my daughter. I told her, I said, Ciera, I'm going to try and get you committed under the Mental Health Act. Don't be surprised when it happens. because my hands are tied, people. I don't know what else to do to help her. Even if she goes into this house short term for another 3-4 months, as I try and figure out what the frick to do, right? What do you call it? The problem is still going to be there. And that's assuming that those people will let me have my daughter move back into that room. Because, like I said, it's a democracy in there, and it's gone into a mutiny where they're trying to kick out the president. Right? So, either or, can't just take her over there and leave her. You know, even if she gets her old room back, still going to have the same problem. Because after the police were done with my daughter, what happened was the ambulance came. Okay? The ambulance came. I told him that she has, particular health problems, right? And that to forward it to the emergency department, because if you're going to take her, you're obviously going to take her there, right? And da-de-de-da. Turns out they left her behind, because when I went out another hour later, she was up the road picking rocks, because that's what she does. She just hovers in one spot and picks rocks for hours. Rain, snow, sun, doesn't matter. Right? And then it becomes a problem because she's got too many of them, and then she wants to start washing them. Right? This is what I mean. She needs a more structured environment, right? Like a group home housing situation. Something with more structure. Something where she can get some sort of a medication once a day at a regular time without interruptions. So, that's kind of like the background history, right? So Shemaine went through a lot. My kids went through a lot because of Ciera. When Ciera comes to the house, I tell Ciera, I'm tired, I'm worn out. It's been too many years, like going on 31 years or 16 years. It's going on 16 years, more than half your life. And, I just don't have the stamina, right? And I have to think about my grandchildren. And, I remind her that her brother doesn't stress me out the way she does. My oldest son may drink, but every now and then he calls me up and he just stresses me out on the phone, and I hang up on him. I tell him, look, if you want to talk to me sober. Otherwise, I don't have no patience for people who drink. I really just don't, right? But he doesn't bring it to the house, where Ciera brings it to the house because she has nowhere to go. Apparently, my son can work. He does his jobs. He gets his rooming, he rents rooms or whatever he does in rooming houses. And he manages, and he doesn't infringe his lifestyle onto my psyche, right? Where Ciera is like there, and she did it to the rest of her family, including for Shemaine. But if you notice, Shemaine is the one that's in here because of fentanyl, which reminds me, after the ambulance left with Ciera to go do a checkup on Ciera, one of the police officers had a bag with a baggie in it with something pink crystals, and he said it was fentanyl. It was the kind that they use to tranquilize elephants. Carfenol, right? And it was enough to kill her, people. It was enough to kill 20 people. Right? So, how is that possible? How is it possible for my drug-addicted, heroin addict, out-of-control daughter to get a little baggie of fentanyl that's enough to kill at least 20 people, if not more? Running around in the freaking alley. Unsupervised yet. Right? Shemaine makes plans to go to school, makes plans to go to Tacoma to go see her dad, right? Looking after the baby, right? Minding her own damn business, and ends up like that. with no evidence around. And the one piece of evidence that I had, I made the mistake of taking it to the safe injection site to have it tested because I wanted to know if fentanyl was in it. Right? Because at that time I didn't feel like the police were doing their damn jobs in terms of taking it serious as to what happened to Shimei. If it was Ciera, I could understand it more. Right? The narrative would be different. Okay? You know how many times we walked into this house thinking that we would find Ciera dead, and if not dead there, at least in the garage? Right? While Shimei goes and lays down to go to sleep and wakes up dead. I was being sarcastic. Of course she didn't wake up dead. She never woke up. So anyway, can't run from your problems, and Ciera is a problem, right? I'm going to be talking to some doctors over the next month about Ciera to see if I can get her committed. I'm warning her. I've warned her. If she doesn't take the initiative to start at least trying to better herself, there's no point in Ciera continuing to run around in the neighborhood agitating everybody and putting herself at risk, right, to harm. Because that's what's happening here, people. Right? And as for Shimei, I'm going to keep standing up for Shimei. Right?